Hi guys, so as it is October, I am here to give you my Halloween reading recommendations. It always seems that people like to steer towards these slightly spooky or scary or unsettling books during the autumn months, and October in particular because of Halloween. So I thought I would recommend to you my top picks that kind of embody those themes. There's a real mixture in here, and definitely some for those of you that don't really like scary books. I've got short story collections and novels, and yeah, let's get into the books, shall we? So first up, I'm going to start with a horrifying dystopian novel, and that is The Girl with All the Gifts by M.R. Carey. This book follows our main character Melanie, a young girl who is kept in an underground bunker. She is kept in an individual cell on a row of cells where other young children of around her age are also kept. They're then strapped down to chairs so that they're unable to move and transported to school every day in this bunker. And both Melanie and the reader are pretty much unaware of why they are in this underground bunker, but this is set in a dystopian world where a virus has swept the country and perhaps the world and very much changed the landscape. It's a very, very well written, constructed story. It's the kind of book where you might not think it's for you, but give it a shot. It's a genre of literature that I never thought would be my cup of tea, but I adored this book. It is so well done. The characters are fascinating, and the mystery and narrative unravels at such an intriguing pace with lots of twists and turns. It's also very unsettling and quite frightening in moments. We then have a little bit more of a classic, and that is The Haunting of Hill House by Shirley Jackson. Now, you could probably read any Shirley Jackson in October and it'd be fitting, but I've picked this one, and this is the sort of haunted house mystery that we all know and love. It follows our protagonist, who is part of an experiment where a group of people who have experienced paranormal experiences in their lives live in this same house together under the supervision of a scientist who is fascinated by the supernatural. Our protagonist Eleanor is so excited to be a part of something like this, but as her time in this house starts to unfold, things start to occur, and we're unsure whether they are caused by the paranormal or not. This book has you constantly questioning yourself and the characters. It is mysterious and superbly written, and like I said, I would just really recommend anything by Shirley Jackson this month. On that note, I'm going to recommend a tiny little book, and that is The Tooth by Shirley Jackson. This is a small collection of Shirley Jackson's short stories published by Penguin. Now, I have to admit, prefer Shirley Jackson's novels to her short stories, but others prefer her short stories, so one may be more for you than the other. However, this tiny little collection includes one of her most famous short stories, and one that I can safely say that I did really enjoy, and that is The Lottery. So The Lottery is just disturbing as anything. I can't give anything away because it's a short story, but I challenge you not to be disturbed by it, so it might be worth also checking out her short stories, including The Lottery. But whilst we're on the topic of short stories, let me recommend some of what I would say are the most scary of short stories, and that's because they're Scottish ghost stories. These are the Scottish ghost stories of James Robertson. I don't know what it is. I have grown up, lived almost all my life in Scotland, yet it still seems to retain this fearful factor in literature for me, and I think it makes a wonderful setting for any scary story. And these are a perfect example of that. I think it's all of the underpopulated land and cold weather and darkness really sets you up for a good setting. So I think checking out somebody like James Robertson's ghost stories is a great place to go this Halloween. And I might also mention at this point a long poem in particular that really for me captures the scary, magical folklorishness of Scotland, and that is Tam O'Shanter by Rabbie Burns. This, like I said, is a long narrative poem by Scotland's pride and joy, the poet Rabbie Burns. This poem follows a young man who stumbles across a meeting of a coven and a gathering of terrifying, monstrous beings from another world, and it is disturbing. So if you think you can manage to read the Scots language, then definitely give this one a shot. It's also a nice way to expose yourself to another culture, another language, a historical one. I'm a big fan of the Scots language, so definitely give it a shot, but I know there are translations out there as well. I'm going to continue with short stories though by recommending to you There Once Lived a Woman Who Tried to Kill Her Neighbour's Baby, Scary Fairy Tales by Lyudmila Petrovskaya. This is a collection of Russian fairy tales, scary fairy tales. It says it in the title. I mean, that title pretty much sums up how unsettling these are, and they very much are. There's lots of hints of magic realism, although some of them are more within the realms of reality than others, and there's a dark, satirical, comical vibe throughout all of them, with quite stark but mesmerising writing, and I adored these stories. They reminded me of my next recommendation, which are the short stories of Roald Dahl, specifically Roald Dahl's adult short stories. That's not to say his children's books aren't scary too, we'll talk about those in a minute, but Roald Dahl's adult short stories are so disturbing, and they very much have a similar feel to Lyudmila Petrovskaya's, and they have this kind of dark, like sinister laughter about them, again quite starkly written but still incredibly mesmerising, and just leave you with like a really unsettling feeling in your gut once you've read them. And I know a lot of them are now published in collections to do with themes, but the original collection that I read that I would recommend is Kiss Kiss. But I think now those short stories have been like littered throughout other collections, so I think you'd be like fine picking up any of his collections, but the one I've read is Kiss Kiss, and there is a story in there in particular about a woman who hates being late to things and whose husband purposefully makes her late for things. That was just brilliant. Not to mention one about a strange woman that owns a bed and breakfast and is really into taxidermy. Lots of things like that going on in there. But whilst we're on the topic of Roald Dahl, to this day, one of the scariest books I've read in my life, I believe, is The Witches by Roald Dahl. This is one of his children's books, and I love this story. It conjures up all the perfect feelings of suspense and like a little bit frightening that I want from a book. When I was a child, I used to have the audio cassette tape, and me and my neighbour used to sit in my room in the dark with my quilt over our heads, put the audio cassette tape on and listen to it, and just get the fright of our lives. So it just really reminds me of this kind of literature. It follows a young boy who's raised by his grandmother, who's always telling him stories about staying away from strange women because they might be witches, and what has happened to other little children in the past who have been caught by witches when they end up accidentally at a witches convention, and he and another little boy are put in danger. A couple more novels though. The next one I have is a young adult novel, and that is The Graces by Laura Eve. This is for the witchy fans in the house. I did do a video recently on witchy books, so I'll link that if you want some more recommendations, but I think this one definitely has the most dark, unsettling themes that might be perfect for Halloween. And it follows a young girl who starts going to a new school, and like everybody else in her school is obsessed with the Graces, three rich but strange outsider siblings that everybody is fascinated by and wants to be friends with or be in a relationship with. Our protagonist River though manages to have the great privilege of becoming part of their inner circle, and she, like everybody else, believes they're witches and is desperate for this to be true. She really wants them to be witches and wants magic to be real, and it's all about whether this magic and witchcraft is true or isn't true, and some pretty dark, shocking things happen as the narrative unfolds. Another young adult horror thriller I would like to mention is Say Her Name by Juno Dawson. This one is inspired by the Bloody Mary ghost story, which I'm sure many of you are familiar with. It involves looking into a mirror and saying Bloody Mary's name so many times, and if you do, she will then come get you. And that is how our story begins. We're at a boarding school where our main character and her friends play the Bloody Mary game. At first, nothing seems to be amiss, but of course, that is not to continue. Strange things start happening to the girls who said Bloody Mary into the mirror, and is the ghost story true, essentially? But lastly, an adult horror, and that is The Loney by Andrew Michael Hurley. This one follows our protagonist and his brother, who are on holiday with their family and the local priest and a few other people from their church group in the same place that they have holidayed for many years, where there is the infamous Loney. This is a place that the locals have always associated with magic, and these boys' mother is desperate to tap into the supposed healing powers of. In the meantime, something strange seems to be afoot. The locals are not behaving like normal, and something strange seems to be going on that our protagonist is not quite clued in on, but is curious about. This one is very slow-paced, but intriguing and unsettling, like you would want from a book like that. But those are my Halloween book reading recommendations. Do let me know what yours would be in the comments down below, or if you have any thoughts on the books I've mentioned in this video. I always love to hear them. Or what are you planning on reading this month? Is it something spooky in honor of Halloween? But until next time guys, happy reading. I'll see you all again soon. Bye!